Hey everyone, so a couple of things before we get into the video. One is you're going to notice that the video quality is kind of low. That's because I didn't want to hook up the fancy camera to the laptop when I did the Zoom call. It just makes things complicated and the connections are unreliable when I do that, and so the audio is a little bit funny when I try to do that because the computer doesn't always want to talk to the camera mic, and it was just a lot simpler and I just wanted to just do the interview. But then also, you'll notice that I'm on screen sometimes and she's on screen sometimes. I wanted to record it where both of us were on screen the whole time, because when I talk, she's doing stuff on screen. When she talks, I'm doing stuff on screen. It just seems less like a conversation when you can see only one person. But it is what it is. I don't know how to change that setting on Zoom, so the conversation is still, understandable. It's still an interview, but it's just not quite visually what I wanted. But all of the, what's the word? All the important stuff is still there. Still worth a watch. We are officially recording. So, hi everyone, welcome to Mudwalkers. As you can see today we have a guest. We're going to be interviewing Sydney about a movement that she's got going on. We're going to learn a lot about it today. So, first of all, Sydney, nice to meet you. Who are you? And how did you come into this whole vision of land and community and sacredness?
So I'm Sydney. I've been traveling on the road for the last 4 years. And during those travels, I really reconnected to spirit, to nature. I feel like you can't really not do that when you're living on the road because, like, you're living outside, like, the world is your home. So that really reconnected me to the land, and spirit comes with that. So that's what got me into, I guess, led me onto the path that I'm on now. I was already always environmentally conscious and cared about the earth and like cared about social issues, but the things that I did were more just in my world until being out in the world and seeing how everything was so connected and realizing that there is no just our world. Like everything is our world. Like we are each other's world. And that's what made me want to start doing more when I started seeing like how the world was affected, um, and just how everything is so connected. So eventually I got into this. It started off with a protest actually in 2020 that led me into wanting to be more active. And I guess, yeah, that's kind of like where Return to Roots started. I was going to do a mutual aid gathering because there was also like talks of like a national general strike going on like across the whole country. So I wanted to do a mutual aid gathering because I knew people aren't going to strike if they have kids to feed. They're not going to strike if they have rent to pay. Like people cannot afford to strike. So I was like, let me make a mutual aid gathering so we could like start connecting more and start having each other's back because the government's not going to. So we have to do that for ourselves and like bring back community. So that's like where it started, and eventually it evolved into what it is now with just returning to our roots and like us living that way. So it's now I now do like week or weekend gatherings around this whole thing.
Yeah, I was talking to some people this week about community, and I know not especially, but specifically where I live, everyone kind of just lives in their own little worlds, and there's no like people say this community and that community, but uh, me and my nuclear family, we're pretty much the only people we see on a day-to-day basis throughout the week, and that's just not natural. It's not human. We are supposed to have this whole structure around us socially that can provide lots more things that we need, like the kind of support you're talking about. I totally see that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really important that we have people around us, and like that's a huge part of it, like returning to roots. It's like all of those things. Like you can't, like I said, like me living on the road, like I was connecting to nature, but the spirituality and the community and the connecting to yourself, like all of that is all a part of the same thing. Like you can't really have one without the other. Like it
For
all just
sure.
follows.
Yeah. So we mentioned Return to Roots. Tell us about that. What is it, and how did it get started? As a we just mentioned a little bit of that, but like how did you get from um, the protest to where you are now with Return to Roots? So what is it, and what was kind of the journey to getting it started?
So yeah, return to roots is kind of like what I just said. It's returning to nature, returning to yourself, getting to know yourself. And a big part of that for me has been ancestry and returning to community and spirit. So I feel all of that's all connected and also moving away from a money-centric mindset within society, because I feel like that is what's taking us away from all of that. Um, so it started with the protests. I seen how much impact that had not only on the country but the world. So everyone around the world was protesting. Like there were people in other countries doing Black Lives Matter protests.
Yeah.
So when I seen that the impact that that had on the world, that gave me an idea of like this was out of like a lot of anger and a lot of just like emotions. Just it was all over the place, and it was a great starting point, but there was no action. No action, but like on a wide scale there wasn't a lot of action that followed that. It was a lot of like um yeah, just like anger, but it was a lot of reaction with no action following that. So like you don't get much change without the action. So that's when I realized that someone needed, like we needed to have people to step up and do something. Like we needed to have leaders. And I seen that like within the community that I was in. I was at in LA, and I seen it like with Portland, and people, there were leaders rising up out of that. And that's where I came to realize that I had to be one of them too. Um, and seeing like the impact that it had on the world, I figured that if something of this scale or of this situation, like a lot of hurt, pain, fear, all of that, then love could also have a really big impact, because I was always really inspired by like Woodstock, stuff like that, Rainbow, even like Burning Man, like those all have really big impacts on the world, like a lot of influence. So if I could create something like that, then I could also have that influence in bringing those values of the reconnection to those four things that I said. I feel once people experience that in the sense of like my gatherings, then they will be inspired to take that to their different communities, and eventually like it'll spread throughout the nation, spread throughout the world, just like those other communities that I just said. So that's like how it evolved over time.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I love the mindset. I think that is exactly what people need, is for this kind of movement to bring in the kind of love and positive change that the world really needs. This is how it gets done. We have to get people like deeply involved, not just coming together and going rah real quick and then disappearing.
Mhm.
We've got to like work together and really make a system, and
Yeah,
that's
there's too
in
many
community.
people. Yeah, exactly.
So the word land has come up a lot, and me personally, in my own thought life, I think of uh, the land as the land with a capital L, is how I like to say it. So
Yeah.
the question I have here is, why is land so important anyway? Just from like pretending I'm completely ignorant about the whole concept, what do you mean by like land, connecting with land? Why is land so important?
It is, I mean, yeah, like you said, it's with a capital L because like the land is the earth, and that is, she is what gives us everything that we need to live. Without protecting the land, and if we destroy everything, eventually we fuck ourselves too,
Yeah,
because we are a part of nature. Like somehow we've removed ourselves from nature. We think that we're separate from it. And we live in this artificial world where we try and replicate nature, but nature already does like everything perfectly.
For sure.
and we try and man make everything. And it's just that's why we have all these diseases, and that's why we have like all these social issues and like the poverty and all kinds of shit that's going on. Once we get back to the land, like then we would see that we don't need to rely on these man-made structures because the earth already gives it all to us. We already have food and water and medicine
Yeah.
and shelter. It's already all there, and someone decided to come along and put a value on it and hoard the resources and charge each other for it and act like it's a scarce resource, but it's not. As long as we take care of the land, like I believe that we were put here as land tenders to like it's a reciprocal relationship. Earth gives us what we need, we give it what it needs, and yeah, we're supposed to restore that.
For sure. I like what you said about, if we mistreat the earth, we ultimately hurt ourselves. And the picture I got in my head is my wife's pantry here in the house. And I pictured her just like throwing gasoline into the pantry and lighting it on fire, and me going, "What are you doing?" that's everything that we need to like survive in this house. And it just seems like that's what you're talking about. This is what civilization is doing right now, is just throwing gasoline on everything and lighting everything on fire that we need. And it's not as if people didn't know how to survive without smartphones and cars and all of
Yeah,
these modern commercial structures and industries. People lived just fine on the land with a capital L. And
yeah.
humanity needs to recapture that vision.
For some reason, people think that the world was devastating before technology, before civilization and all this shit. They think that people were dying at 20 years old and that life just sucked. And maybe for some people that I mean at the beginning they already removed themselves. When that was happening, I think people are referring to like medieval Europe. When that was happening, they already removed themselves from nature. They're already starting to forget where they came from, forgetting how to connect and how to work with nature and what is good for them. But if you go to like other native tribes, like with the one that I'm with here now, they're living past 100.
Yeah,
And that's just proof that like that narrative that they sold us is not true. We could live very well living off the land and a lot healthier.
absolutely. Some of the figures about the average lifespan, being 30 years old in the Stone Age and stuff like that. And it's a trick of mathematics because um, there was a higher infant mortality rate among hunter gatherers in the Stone Age period, but they also had elders. They had aged people who were still productive, thinking, active members of their communities. So the average, yeah, when you have people living past 100, and then you have some other people dying before they hit a year old, yeah, your average is going to be 30. But it doesn't mean people don't live long, healthy lives when they make it through their infancy.
Yeah, Americans aren't very good at math and don't really know what average means, I guess.
Yeah, we tend to think that average means normal, and average does not mean normal. Average means, like you're saying, it's a math number, and it's not always completely accurate to reality in
Yeah,
the
exactly.
biggest sense. So, what's your vision for Return to Roots? Touch on a little bit about getting more people involved and this becoming like a bigger movement with more people and like real community. But what's your vision for Return to Roots? If you could set the future in stone with how you want the future to look as a result of Return to Roots, what does it look like?
Um, it looks like people getting back to um for one, like balancing the masculine and the feminine. Something that I've been hearing a lot is like I'm saying, this artificial world, it's very logic based, it's very science based, it's very masculine. Living with the earth is very intuitive, and like we've taken that out of balance. And I think like one, like rebalancing that um will help a lot with us. Sorry, I might need to cut this part. We got to think about that for a second. Mm, I think the future would look like us just knowing how to work with the earth, knowing how to not destroy it. And that's like a big part of why I'm working with this tribe and why we're going to be working with other tribes is because like we need to get back to that way of living. And once we have that knowledge, we'll be able to like restore that natural balance, restoring reciprocity. And it doesn't have to look like everyone living off grid like they think it does. Like when I talk about this stuff, say return to roots, say reconnecting to nature, people think it means throwing everything away, throwing away all your technology, and just going and sleeping on the ground. And
Yeah.
that's not what it means. Like, if that's what you want it to mean, cool, it can. But like, I know it's not going to look the same for everybody. It just means being aware of your consumption and like if you can neutralizing that in cleaning up the earth and not furthering its destruction, like really getting back in touch with that intuitive knowing of like things that work for you, things that work for earth, like even like for an example like with medicine, how people think that herbal medicine is just bullshit, and it's a balance of the two, like with Western medicine and like the surgeries that you might need and all that stuff. We need that, but we also need the medicinal herbs and shit because you can't just keep prescribing opiates to people to numb the symptoms and make people think that they're better when it's not actually doing anything.
For
Like
sure.
it looks like restoring that balance.
Yeah. I agree completely with what you just said about balancing out technology. I've said the same thing for a while about modern medicine. I think the fact that we actually have, not we, I didn't do it, but the fact that there are doctors in Western medicine who are now doing things like organ transplants and reattaching severed limbs, it's pretty dope. I can get behind that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
But like you said, prescribing a powerful drug to someone doesn't need it. That's going to come with side effects and all other kind of crap. That doesn't make any sense to me. If I can be healthy with what's essentially growing out of the ground and living a robust life and eating well, then I should just do that. But we're like you've been saying, this is kind of getting lost in the West because people are taking this great new thing in Western medicine and trying to apply it to everything, and it doesn't apply to everything so well. What is I guess some of your biggest or like most favorite like success stories, the things that you've loved seeing coming out of Return to Roots so far?
Um, well, for my first gathering, so I'm gonna go a bit more into spirit, which I know is like hard for people to understand. But before my first gathering, I was just like kind of at a spot where like I didn't really know what to do. I just knew something had to be done. So I was kind of just winging it and just starting something completely new. And the people that I was gonna do it with kind of just like flaked on me, and I had this like little moment with the earth and Yosemite, and I was like, hey, I don't know what to do. I don't really know what direction I need to go. But I do know that I need to help you. I need to protect the earth, and I am going to give my life to doing that. Just make sure I'm good because I was in debt at the time. I just came out of a really bad depression. I was like $5,000 in debt. I was stressed, and I was like, just make sure that I eat, just make sure I'm good. If I break down, someone helps me, or just like don't let me break down. Like make sure I always have a place to stay, and then I'm fine. And I am going to do everything that I can to serve you. Just make sure I'm always good. And since then, I've
Yeah.
always been good. So that was like a couple months before the gathering, and then leading up to it, my two friends dropped out of coming to help me with the gathering, and I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know if I want to cancel it. And then I realized like, no, I have to have the first one. I have to like make sure that happens, and then I could just learn from it. Like it might be a shit show, but at least I'm gonna learn what I could do better for next time. But then I asked again, like of the universe, like, hey, can you bring me who I need to be with in this mission? Like, who's gonna do this journey with me? Because I don't have anybody right now. I don't have anyone that's serious about this. Like, just bring me whoever needs to be here doing this with me. And that's exactly what happened. Like Kelsey, she just walked away right now, but the people that I'm here with in Colombia right now, I met at that first gathering. And I talked to them for like maybe 5-10 minutes. Like one night. They were there for one night. And I talked to them like for 2 hours months later. Oh, I seen them at Rainbow, talked to them for a few minutes there, talked to them for a couple hours on the phone, and then I came here. And now I'm like a part of this mission, like doing this with this tribe. And I met other people, like other friends that are helping me do stuff. I met another one of my friends, Sway. She helps me do the gatherings. So that was really crazy. And that's like when I already knew that Universo always it always got me just living on the road. I already learned that. But like that's when I knew like, okay, like this is the start of this journey. Like I need to continue on this mission. Like this is my life mission now. Like now I know what I'm doing. And then with the last gathering, um, it was just really beautiful. Like it came together. People like I didn't really need to buy much. Like people just knew they brought stuff because like the whole thing about the gatherings is like sharing everything. So no, everything's free. If you can donate, that'd be great to like help pay for some of this stuff, like get more food or like whatever supplies we need. But I like to keep it open for whoever needs it. Like whoever needs the healing, whoever needs the community, whoever needs to find something like that, whoever needs that experience, I want to keep it open for everybody.
Yeah.
So everyone came and donated, whether it was money or food or like someone brought a stove. So it's like everyone participates. Like it's our gathering. It's not my gathering. It's all of our gatherings. Like it's our
Yeah.
experience. And it was really cool. Like this family, there was 4 kids. The single mom and her 4 kids came. And that's what she was saying too. She was like, they're on their spiritual journey together. They're such a beautiful family. I'm so inspired by them. And like her kids, I have never heard an 11 or a 13-year-old talk the way these kids talk. They're fucking amazing.
That's
Um,
great.
yeah, but she was like, I want to go on these retreats. I want to do these spiritual things with them, but I can't because everything costs like 5, 10, $11,000. Like everything's so expensive. And I got 4 kids. There's 5 of us. I wouldn't have been able to do this if it's not free. And like just her saying that, like that's exactly like what I'm wanting to do. So that part, I think that was like my favorite part of that gathering was like having them come out and like knowing that it's going to keep growing like that. And again, like some of like the perfect people came out, like a lot came out of that gathering. Lots of connections, lots of growth, lots of affirmation. Yeah, lots of spiritual growth for myself.
That's awesome. I've heard that from so many different people from various faiths and traditions and worldviews and perspectives that when they reach out and they start to, I don't know, like pray or seek out. It
Mhm.
just, things have a way of coming together when there's that kind of, whatever it is, focus, prayer, whatever that is. Lots of people seem to experience that. I find it very believable and relatable what you're talking about. That when you reached out like that, that things started coming together. I think
Same thing.
might be a little bit frozen on my end. Did you hear me? What I said?
No,
Okay.
sorry.
Well, I was just saying, basically, what you talked about, how reaching out, you said to the universe like that, that things kind of started coming into place. And I was saying that people from lots of different faiths and traditions and religions and or non-religions have said similar things to me before. That when they reach out, things kind of seem to start to fit together. So it's really believable and relatable what you're talking about. I've seen that before.
Yeah, I don't know if you heard me, but I was saying like for me it's the same, it's different means for getting to the same thing. Like really
Yeah.
it's all the same thing. It's just we call it's translated differently throughout different cultures.
So next one. Tell me about what you're doing in Colombia right now. This sounds so exciting to me. Tell me about where you are and what's going on, what your goals are, how it's going. Tell me about it.
So we are working with the Arhuaco right now. They're a tribe in Colombia. They're one of the first tribes that had contact with Columbus when he landed here 500 years ago. And they had to retreat to their sacred mountain where we're on right now. And it is the heart chakra of the world. So over the last, like I think they said 80 years, cartel and Colombian government and stuff have been coming in, taking their land, selling off illegal deeds to Colombian citizens, and they're coming in and um, building illegal towns on the mountain. They are deforesting it. We just seen a fire like the other week on the mountain. They're polluting the water. They're over time, like if this continues, like corporations are trying to come in, they want to like, I don't know, mine and do all kinds of shit. Like they want to just destroy the
They probably want
mountain.
to bring every kind of industry in there that they can.
Yeah, no, exactly. And we are trying to get people to realize like why it's so important. Like not only is it they're creating violence against indigenous people and destroying the lands, like environmental issues, but it's also a big spiritual issue that, like I said, we're on the heart chakra of the world, and we're trying to get people to understand why that's so important. So if you know a little about chakras, like we have them in ourselves, and it is the heart of the world. So like that's like stopping a human's heart. Like if you were to destroy a human's heart, they're gonna die.
Yeah.
If you destroy the heart of the world, it's gonna die. So we're trying to get people to understand that. And there's whole prophecies around it. Their prophecy is the eagle and the condor. The Hopi prophecy talks about it as well, where people come together from all over the world, from all different nationalities, races, whatever. Everyone comes together to make a stand to start protecting and preserving the earth. And it talks about the potential of that, and it's up to us to actually put that into action and do something about it. So that's what we're trying to do here is get people to understand this first and then have people come out here, and we're trying to raise money to buy their land back so they could have their own commerce, and they want to start their own government so that they could fight against the Colombian government. And it's a really long process, like big, really big mission. But that's a bit about it. It
Yeah.
goes deep, but it's very a really big spiritual mission. And like, yeah, we want to get people to understand that. So we're trying to get the word out there as much as we can,
Yeah.
fast as we can.
You did such a good job, like summing all of that up. I realized that you could probably sit here with all the information and talk for 6 hours about what's going on, but you managed to just stick it in a couple minutes. That was awesome. And
Thank
so,
you.
what was I gonna say? There was something I remember. Oh yeah, yeah. I love the ingenuity that you're talking about with these people saying, okay, there are these systems coming after us. What parts of these systems can we use against the system to try and retain our way of life in our land? I love that. And as kind of like a crude or oversimplified example, it
Yeah.
reminds me of the stories I've been hearing. Zoom is telling me the time is almost up. Okay. We may have to do a second recording if you have time. We'll see where it cuts us off. But I remember hearing these stories about indigenous peoples in North America. Suddenly, these colonialists start rolling in with their muskets and their cannons and all other kinds of crazy stuff. And what do the indigenous people do except start acquiring some muskets and cannons of their own? And they start forming all of these types of resistance against the system by absorbing enough of the system to be effective against it.
Yeah.
So that ingenuity is really interesting here with the Mayan people.
Yeah. Have to adapt a little bit, but they're still like they want to keep their ways. Like, and they have to keep, we need them to keep their ways and their knowledge and their wisdom and the traditions and everything. Like, that is really important to keep alive. So we're trying to help them. Like, that's why we came in and trying to help them with that as much as we can, having like an outside group to facilitate all of that. And they're gonna do all their magic shit. They're gonna like keep the wisdom, and like we that's another thing they want to do. They want to build a school at the bottom of their mountain so that they could have people come that want to learn, and they are going to teach those people how we can restore the balance of the world, how we could connect to nature, how we can live in that way. And I think like once we all connect together and we have like all the indigenous people, all the indigenous nations build an alliance, and once we start connecting, once there's more allyship behind indigenous people, we're going to be able to blend the two worlds together, where we can both keep our like our ways of life, I guess, like our technologies and our wisdom and everything, but like taking the best of both worlds, I think is what is going to make a more sustainable and better future for everybody.
Yeah. I was just thinking about that same phrase, "best of both worlds." That was rattling around my skull as you were talking, and you said the phrase, and yeah, that was yeah, absolutely. I think that is important to take the deep, I don't know if this is the right phrase, but like earthy wisdom of indigenous peoples, and retaining this reciprocity with the land, like you're talking about, and community, taking this deep earthy wisdom, and then taking that, but then some of these things that we either need or can't get rid of yet in modern civilization, and trying to marry those two as best we can moving forward. I do think that's a phenomenal vision. Oh, okay. Dropping my paper here. Okay. So we've made it to the last little bit here. This has been an adventure. So
Yeah.
where can people find your content, your channel or channels, social media? How can people connect with you?
So we have a few different things. I just started a Return to Roots movement channel, so it should be Return to Roots movement on there. I also have my personal, where I'm starting to share more about like the spiritual side of what I'm saying, because I want to keep like the Return to Roots more like on the project side, and then I'm sharing more like on the spiritual aspect stuff that I've learned, giving my perspectives to hopefully help people be able to find their own way. In just things like that, messages that I get coming in. And that's Not So Dirty Hippie. And then I
And you're
have,
not saying that it is not something. The not so is part of the name. I
yeah,
want to
not,
clarify that for the viewers, that it
yeah,
starts with not. It's Not So Dirty Hippie.
yeah, that's the full name, Not So Dirty Hippie. And then my personal Instagram is Not So Dirty Hippies with the S at the end. And the Instagram is Return to Roots 2022. And then I have my friends, they're the ones that co-founded Sun Nation, and that's what we're the nation of what we're trying to create is going to be under, and it is, what is it? Sun Nation?
Nationsun.bts.
Nationsun.bts on Instagram. And you have another one? Are you going to be building that one up?
We are Sun Nation.
And the other one is We Are Sun Nation on Instagram. Oh yeah, and then I have TikTok, Not So Dirty Hippie. It's a bit of a blend between my travels and this. I'm trying to post more about this and get that out there, because TikTok is a better way to get exposure. So
It's a very
there's
hot
that.
platform. Lots of people are using it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I'm putting like little things out there like about what's going on, but trying to funnel people to the YouTube where I go more into depth about it, because it's just like kind of, they're short videos. So it's just like a little bit about what we're doing, full videos on YouTube.
Yeah.
What was that? Oh yeah. And I'm also having a music festival around the Return to Roots movement. It's called Soul Awakening. It's going to be in Arizona later this year, end of September. And that social is just Soul Awakening on Instagram. With that festival, I really want to get the values of Return to Roots out into the mainstream. So I guess that was something I forgot to mention earlier, is I did start a production company called Awaken Productions, where I'm going to be creating events. And the Return to Roots is still going to be free, donation based. But for the people that might not be there and think that this is just hippie bullshit and aren't going to come, well, now I have a music festival where you could be more comfortable and be in a scene that's familiar to you, but
Yeah,
you're still gonna get the same values. So that's what I'm doing.
that's cool. Kind of in a way, like meeting them where they are to an extent. Okay, maybe you're not going to come to the hippie bullshit festival, but you're going to come to something that feels a little bit more familiar, but there's still a lot of the same ideas within it.
Yeah,
That makes a lot of
exactly.
sense. So, how can we get involved? You're doing this amazing work in Colombia, and these indigenous people are fighting for their land. How can we become a part of this? How can we help?
So first, I think like taking a look at yourself and seeing like what you're good at will help the most for the movement. So, say if you're good at talking to people or whatever, maybe like getting this out there, some kind of street team helping us fundraise, that might be great. Talking like you're doing now, like having these conversations and giving it out to your audience. That helps a lot. We want to have people come here to Colombia to be a part of this. Like we really need everything. Like we're building a whole nation. So whatever is going to be needed in that, whatever you feel like you have.
Oh, we lost video and audio again. It got disconnected a little bit.
What
Lost
did you?
about 5 or 6 seconds, I think.
Okay.
Lost you right after you said you were building a nation.
Yeah, so whatever you feel like you could offer to a community, I'd say bring that. Like me, I'm trying to work on content and the gatherings and stuff. So like that's my thing. Other people, like maybe if you're good at numbers or whatever, counting kind of things, you can help in that way. But like what I guess anybody could do is really just getting the word out there, donating if you can. We are going to have investment opportunities because we are starting cacao, coffee, and eventually sugarcane production so that we can bring money into the tribe so that they have so that they have capital to do the things that they need to do and fund the projects that we need to fund,
Yeah,
finding sponsorships and stuff. So really just getting the word out there as much as we can. And if you have anything else that you feel you could offer, reaching out to us directly so we can have that conversation to figure out what it is.
cool. Is there like a website where people can go directly to donate? Is that an option or?
We have a Give Butter. Do you I wonder how do I want to do that? Should I show it to you? Should I send you the link?
Sure, we can do that. I'll put the link in the description.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll send you links. I have a link tree that has everything on there too. So,
Okay,
um, yeah, I forgot. I also have a Return to Roots Movement website, and it's at returntorootsmovement.com. You're not allowed to post it on Instagram or Facebook, by the way. It got banned.
Hmm.
Yeah. So that you can't share, but everything else you could share.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Zoom is telling me that we only have a few seconds left. So it sounds like we got everything in just in the nick of time.
Yeah, sweet. That's perfect. Thank you
Hey,
so much for doing this.
absolutely. Thanks for talking to me. Hopefully we can talk again at some point, DM or whatever, and get updates. And yeah, uh, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for, yeah, stay connected.
I called it. Zoom booted us out because I haven't paid for the paid version of Zoom because I'm cheap. But anyway, I thought the conversation went great. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Big thanks, by the way, to Sydney for doing the interview. I think she's doing really good work down there in Colombia right now. I think she's onto something with this movement of hers. If you want to find all the stuff in the description, if you want to find out how to connect with Sydney, like I said, all the stuff is going to be in the description for you to go and check all that out, make up your own minds, find out about what's going on, and if you want to get involved, get involved. Like she said, it doesn't have to be one kind of involvement. There's like all kinds of stuff that we can do to help. So if you decide you want to get involved, go on and get involved. I do think this is an important part of human life is recapturing land with a capital L and forming community. So I think there's something important going on here, something to be said. Thank you guys for watching. Check out the stuff in the description, and I will see you next time.